Dad was pounding on our door at 9 a.m. sharp, hard enough that the frame trembled. Ellie froze in the hallway, still holding the Christmas drawing she'd made for him. Red crayon smudged on her fingertips, glitter everywhere. Her little shoulders pulled up as if she could hide inside them. His voice boomed through the thin wood. "Scarlett, open this damn door right now." If anyone walking by heard it, they would have assumed something catastrophic was happening. They wouldn't know that in my family, this was normal. They wouldn't know this scene didn't start with shouting. It started with one text, one decision, and a lifetime of swallowing disappointment until it burned. But we'll come back to the door. First, let me rewind that I'm Scarlett. Before we go any further, tell me, where are you listening from? Because what I'm about to tell you, it happens to more people than you'd think. We lived in a tiny coastal apartment, the kind with chipping blue paint and a balcony barely big enough for a single chair. Ellie, my 6-year-old, filled every corner with color. Her drawings were taped to the fridge, the hallway, the bathroom mirror. Unicorn stickers here, sequins there. Her world spilling into mine like she was trying to brighten both our lives at once. And me? I was the dependable one. The responsible daughter. Fixer. The one who always replied, "Don't worry, I'll handle it." Even when I couldn't afford to. Phone plan overdue. Covered it. Car insurance bounced. Paid. Dad's blood pressure meds. I sent money before he had to ask. Every emergency somehow landed in my hands. But that morning, before the pounding, before the shouting, before Ellie's drawing shook in her hands, something else happened. A text. 6 words. 6 words that cracked something inside me. I was sitting on the floor with Ellie, watching her color a unicorn with bright blue wings. She lifted her head, eyes big and hopeful. "Mommy, are Grandma and Grandpa coming for my birthday today?" And for once, I allowed myself a moment of hope too. Maybe this year would be different. Maybe they'd show up for her, even if they never showed up for me. My phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. "We're skipping your kid's birthday. Things are tight." That was it. No apology. No explanation. Not even her name. Just a blunt message sent while my daughter practiced her most excited birthday smile. My chest tightened. My ribs felt too small. I stared at the screen, feeling that familiar sting, the kind you pretend doesn't hurt, even when it slices deep. Ellie leaned against my arm. "Mommy, what did they say?" I swallowed. Typed back what years of conditioning had trained me to type. No problem. But inside my head, it was a problem. A big one, because I had spent years cushioning every fall, every mistake, every absence. Years being the bandage over wounds I didn't cause. But Ellie, she didn't deserve scraps. She didn't deserve excuses. She didn't deserve to be the afterthought my parents turned me into. And what I didn't know then was that their message, those 6 careless words, were the final fracture. The moment everything we'd been holding together finally gave way. But it wasn't no problem. Not for me, and definitely not for Ellie. What happened next would change everything between us and my family forever. Ellie's birthday weekend arrived with a kind of rain that soaked the entire sky, turning the windows into foggy mirrors. But she didn't let it ruin anything. She came out of her room wearing the purple dress she'd been waiting weeks to wear. Sparkly tulle, mismatched barrettes, and her favorite unicorn socks. She twirled once, giggling as the skirt puffed out around her. "Do I look 6?" she asked. "You look perfect," I told her, because she did. She always did. The living room wasn't much, but we turned it into a birthday picnic anyway. A blanket spread across the floor. Paper plates with cartoon stars. Homemade cupcakes. Slightly lopsided, but covered in purple frosting and way too many sprinkles. 2 of Ellie's classmates were dropped off by their parents, smiling awkwardly while holding wrapped crayons and a tiny plush unicorn. Their parents didn't stay, they had errands or work, or maybe just trusted that we'd make it a good time. And we did. We played freeze dance. We colored glitter crowns. We pretended the rain outside was dragon weather, and the kids squealed every time thunder rolled. Ellie tried so hard to enjoy every second. She laughed too loudly, ran too fast, smiled until her cheeks flushed pink. But I kept catching her glancing at the door, just once, then twice, then again. The party ended early, as kid parties usually do. The two girls were picked up with quick goodbyes and promises of playdates soon. That probably wouldn't happen, and then it was quiet. Ellie climbed onto the blanket alone, holding one of the cupcakes, the smallest one. A single candle stood crooked in the center. She looked up at me. "Should I still make a wish?" "Of course, baby." She closed her eyes, but she didn't blow the candle out yet. She just held it there, a tiny flame flickering in the dim room, and then, barely above a whisper, she said, "Maybe next year." She didn't mention grandparents. She didn't ask why they didn't come. She didn't even wait for the door anymore. She blew out the candle with a soft puff, set the cupcake down, and started cleaning up her glitter crowns like it was nothing. But I knew her well enough to recognize the heaviness in her small movements. The way she kept her back straight. The way she hummed loudly to cover whatever she didn't want me to hear. She didn't cry. Not once. And somehow, that hurt more. So I watched her pick up sequins off the floor. Something in me shifted. Not anger, not yet. Just a quiet ache. An ache I knew too well. One I'd been carrying since I was her age. Because this wasn't about a missed birthday. It wasn't about one rainy afternoon or one broken promise. It was a pattern. History. A long, exhausting tradition of me holding everyone else up while they let us fall again and again. Year after year, I'd been the family's safety net. Paying bills, fixing crises, absorbing hurt with a smile. But that night, watching Ellie pretend she wasn't disappointed, something inside me whispered, enough, but that ache. It was about to become something much sharper. Because Christmas was coming, and my parents were about to show me exactly where we stood in their world. Christmas morning should have felt magical. Ellie padded into the living room wearing her red pajamas, the ones with tiny snowflakes that glowed faintly under the yellow lamp. She clutched the drawing she'd been working on all week. Two grandparents holding hands with a little girl between them, a tiny heart floating above their heads. Her careful crayon strokes had smudged at the edges from how many times she'd held it. "Do you think they'll come early?" she asked, voice filled with a hope that hurt to hear. "Maybe," I said, forcing warmth into my tone. "Let's see." She curled up near the window, legs tucked under her, humming softly to herself as she stared out at the gray December sky. Tiny puffs formed on the glass every time she breathed against it. I made cocoa, extra marshmallows, and pretended I wasn't checking my phone every few minutes. Pretended I wasn't waiting for a call, a text, some sign that my parents remembered. But the hours kept sliding past UST noon. Ellie held up her drawing again, smoothing the corners. At 2 p.m., she asked if maybe Grandma's phone wasn't working. By 3 p.m., she wasn't asking anything at all. I knelt beside her. "Maybe they're busy. Christmas can be a lot." She nodded, but her shoulders dropped. That tiny shift, barely noticeable, felt heavier than anything I'd carried all year. When she went to wash her hands, I opened my laptop. Not for work. Not for anything productive. Just to distract myself from the growing silence. The homepage loaded. And right there, front and center, was the post I didn't want to see. A Facebook update from my mother. Time-stamped 1:32 p.m. The photo looked like a magazine spread, a Christmas tree taller than their ceiling, dripping with silver garlands and crystal ornaments. Piles of gifts stacked so high they almost reached the branches. A balloon arch in red, green, and gold framing the entire living room like some kind of holiday advertisement. And Marissa's kids, my sister's kids, were front and center, ripping open presents with squeals straight out of a commercial shoot. Wrapping paper flying. Camera flash catching every wide-smiled eye in the background. My mom held a glittery box, her face bright, joyful, soft in a way Ellie had never seen from her. And the caption. God. The caption hit harder than any door pounding, any excuse, any "we're tight on money this month. So blessed to be with our favorite little ones." Favorite. Not all. Not equally. Not even close. My stomach twisted. My hands went cold. A small sound behind me made me turn. Ellie stood there, her red pajama sleeve brushing the edge of the laptop. She wasn't crying. She wasn't asking. She was just looking. Her voice came out soft, thin, fragile. "They forgot me again, didn't they?" I pulled her close, burying her against my chest, wishing I could shield her from the truth, wishing I could rewrite it, reorder it, reshape it so she never had to feel that hollow disappointment, but I had no words. Not honest ones. The rest of the day moved like a ghost drifting through our home. I reheated dinner. Folded blankets that didn't need folding. Ellie sat at the table, painting in golds and navies until the colors blurred into muddy streaks. Every few minutes, her eyes flicked back to the window like maybe, just maybe, the headlights of forgiveness might appear. They didn't. By nightfall, she had fallen asleep on the couch, brush still in hand, her little brow furrowed even in dreams. I stepped into the hallway and leaned against the wall, letting the quiet finally hit me full force. It hurt. But beneath the hurt was something else. Something steadier, sharper, more defined than I'd ever felt before. Something in me didn't just crack, it aligned. A clean, sharp line between what I'd accepted all my life and what I would no longer allow. And the next morning I did something I should have done years ago. The morning after Christmas felt unreal. Not dramatic, not heavy, not chaotic. Just clear. That I woke up with a strange kind of steadiness, the kind that usually comes after crying, except I hadn't cried. Not last night. Not even when Ellie whispered, "They forgot me again." This clarity wasn't loud. It was quiet. Quiet enough to feel almost unnerving. Ellie was curled up at the foot of my bed, still wrapped in her red pajamas, her golden navy painting tucked against her chest like a shield she'd fallen asleep holding. Her little breaths rose and fell softly. For the first time in a long while, she looked peaceful. I slipped out of bed, opened my laptop and clicked into the Payments tab. There they were. Rows and rows of them. Years of automatic transfers. Payments I'd signed up for during emergencies, during panicked late-night phone calls, during just until next month promises that stretched into forever. Phone plans, insurance, memberships, medical fees, random recurring charges I hadn't even noticed anymore. A map of every time I'd tried to keep the peace. A map of every time I'd sacrificed without question. I stared at the list for a long moment. Not in hesitation, but in realization. I had been holding a net under my family for years. They never once looked down to see it was me, and my hand hovered over the first cancel button. Not from fear. Not from guilt. But from the sudden understanding that this tiny click was the beginning of something I'd never allowed myself to have. Freedom. I clicked. The page refreshed. I clicked the next. Then the next. Then the next point. One by one the ties loosened. One by one the weights fell away. Each cancellation felt like a long-buried breath finally leaving my lungs. That a chain reaction of liberation. No dramatic music. No shaking hands. No rush of adrenaline. Just calm. Calm so deep it felt like silence after years of shouting. WY sunrise. Everything was cancelled. Not out of revenge. Not out of spite. Not out of punishment. Out of necessity. Out of protection. Out of finally choosing the life Ellie deserved. Around mid-morning, my phone rang. Marissa. I almost didn't answer, but I did. She didn't bother with hello. Dad's losing it, she said. Mom's crying. Everything got shut off. I waited for anger in her voice. Accusations. Blame. Instead she sounded tired. Really tired. I took a breath. I'm just done. That's all. There was a pause. A long one. Then softly, almost a whisper. Good. The call ended, leaving the air strangely lighter. The rest of the day unfolded with the ease of a normal life. A life I hadn't realized was possible. Ellie helped me put her books back on the shelf, humming off-key as she sorted them by color instead of category. She leaned against my side, warm and content. I like when it's just us, she said. I wrapped an arm around her. Me too. Because for the first time, the quiet didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like safety. Like space. Like the beginning of something better. And I realized, this simple, peaceful life, this quiet, steady world, was what Ellie deserved all along. What we deserved. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know how my dad would react when he figured out everything was gone. But I knew he would. People like him always do. The calm before the storm is real, and it gives you just enough time to breathe before everything erupts. 9 a.m. sharp, the pounding began. Not a knock. A slam. Hard enough that the cereal bowl in Ellie's hands slipped and scattered across the floor. She startled, eyes wide, breath catching. Mom! I steadied her with a gentle hand and pulled her behind me. I didn't have to look through the peephole. I knew exactly who it was. Howard's voice thundered through the door. Scarlett, open this door. Now. A neighbor down the hall cracked their door an inch, then immediately shut it again. No one wanted to get caught in the crossfire. I opened our door only half an inch. Howard's face filled the gap. Red, wild, the kind of fury born not from hurt but from losing control. His breath hit the cold air in sharp bursts. What did you do? He spat. The phone's dead. The insurance is gone. Everything is shut off. Behind him, Linda hovered with her purse clutched to her chest, looking like she'd walked into a storm she didn't prepare for. And off to the side, Valerie and Tessa stood with their arms crossed, their favorite posture, chins tilted just enough to show they were here to judge, not to help. I held my ground. Everything I paid for, I said evenly. I stopped paying for. Howard shoved the door, trying to force it open, but I braced my foot against the frame. The wood groaned, but it didn't budge. His eyes flicked past me and landed on Ellie peeking from the hallway. You're dragging her into this, he barked. You're poisoning her against her own family. Family. The word burned. You mean, I said, voice steady, the same family who skipped her birthday because things were tight? Howard's jaw tensed. Linda's eyes darted away. And, I continued, the same family who spent Christmas under balloon arches with mountains of gifts, on the same day you couldn't send a single message to the child waiting at the window for you? Valerie stepped forward, scoffing. Oh, come on, Scarlett. You're being dramatic. Tessa chimed in right on cue. Everyone's talking about how you're overreacting. And that's when it happened. Ellie stepped out from behind me. Her little hands were shaking, but her voice wasn't. They forgot me, she said. Her eyes moved from face to face, landing on each of them like she was searching for a flicker of truth. They forgot me again. The hallway went silent, even Howard froze, the accusation from a 6-year-old hitting harder than anything I could have said. He broke eye contact first, looking away before muttering, Kids don't understand. Adults have responsibilities. I nodded slowly. Exactly. And for years I covered yours. Howard's gaze snapped back to me, but I didn't stop. I paid your phone plans, your insurance, your repairs, your emergency bills. Every crisis you dumped on me I fixed. Linda winced. Tessa's crossed arms loosened. Valerie's frown deepened, like she'd heard these truths before but chose to file them under inconvenient. Tessa's voice came out sharp. Everyone helps their parents, Scarlett. I held up my hand, cutting her off. Helping is one thing. Being used is something else entirely. I stepped forward just enough that Howard had to take a step back. Let me tell you what help looked like in my home, I said quietly, yet every word landed with precision. It looked like Ellie waiting at the window on her birthday wearing her purple dress. It looked like her making a drawing for grandparents who never showed. It looked like her sitting in red pajamas on Christmas morning, clutching a picture of 2 grandparents who weren't thinking about her at all. Linda's breath hitched. You gave her nothing, I continued. Not a call. Not a message. Not a second of your time. Howard's face hardened. We were busy. Yes, I said. Busy celebrating Marissa's kids. Busy posting photos of your balloon arch and piles of gifts. Busy calling them your favorite little ones. Linda stepped closer, voice trembling. We didn't mean, I shook my head. You never mean it. But you do it anyway. The truth hung between us, sharp and undeniable. Howard opened his mouth to respond, but the fury in his eyes told me he wasn't here for a conversation. He was here to regain control, to demand what he thought he was owed. But today, that wasn't going to happen. Not in my home. Not in front of my daughter. Not after everything they'd done. And just as Howard drew in a breath, ready to unleash whatever came next, I felt the shift inside me. The same clarity from the morning after Christmas. This time, it settled like armor. But that wasn't the real crisis for him, was it? Because I had one more card to play, and this one would change everything. Howard's anger rises before Scarlett even steps fully inside. This doesn't explain why you shut off everything without warning. he snaps, voice sharp enough to slice the air. Scarlett doesn't flinch. That's not the real crisis, is it? His eyes narrow into something dark, accusing. What are you implying? Instead of answering, Scarlett steps past him. Slow, calm, terrifyingly controlled. Her boots echo against the entryway floor as she reaches the side table. A neatly stacked packet sits waiting, exactly where she left it. She picks it up and turns back toward him. Here, she says, holding it out. Howard doesn't take it, but his eyes drop to the top line anyway. And then, his entire face drains of color. He swallows. Hard. Linda gasps behind him. Valerie's eyes go wide, hands freezing midair as if she'd been praying. Tessa whispers, "Oh my God." Scarlett's voice slices the stillness. "It's a loan application. My name. Using my identity. With your address and phone number." Howard's jaw opens and closes like he's searching for a lie that fits. "That was a misunderstanding," he stammers. "A simple, you forged my signature." Scarlett's tone sharpens, precise. "And you took nearly $8,000. His wrists begin to shake. His voice cracks, not with sadness but with entitlement. "You didn't need it as much as we did." The hallway suddenly feels colder. Ellie shifts behind Scarlett, pressing her small shoulder into her mother's leg for warmth. Scarlett gently rests a hand on her daughter's head, steadying both of them. "You stole from your own daughter," Scarlett says. "And justified it because you thought I wouldn't fight back." Howard's mask slips. Panic flickers through his eyes, quick and ugly. He lunges for the papers. Scarlett moves them out of reach. "If you file anything..." He starts, voice breaking into a threat he can barely hold together. "I already did." The silence hits like a dropped weight. Heavy, absolute. Linda covers her mouth. Valerie whispers something that sounds like a prayer or maybe just disbelief. Tessa takes a step back, as if the truth itself pushed her. Howard stares at Scarlett, stunned. "You wouldn't." "But it's not a threat anymore. It's a plea." Scarlett steps forward, steady and unshakable. "I would do anything to protect my daughter," she says quietly. "Even from you." The shift happens in real time. The moment he realizes the old version of Scarlett, the one who smoothed crises and fixed his disasters, no longer exists. She isn't his shield. She isn't his fallback. She isn't his. She's her daughter's. Ellie tugs Scarlett's sleeve gently. "Mom, can we close the door?" Scarlett looks down, softening. "Yes, baby." She lifts her eyes one last time at Howard, long enough for the truth to land, clean and final. Then she closes the door this time. He doesn't try to stop it. The silence after that door clicked shut was almost unreal. For the first time in years I felt the lock click for us, not to keep someone out but to keep someone safe. And what happened next proved that was the right choice. The next few weeks didn't explode. They just quietly shifted, like the ground rearranging itself after an earthquake. Her parents didn't come back. No apologies. No explanations. Not even a half-hearted attempt at pretending things were normal. At first, the distant relatives tried to fill the silence. They sent long, passive-aggressive messages about family unity, and respecting elders, and what will people think. Scarlett read them, sighed, and didn't reply. They went quiet once they realized the old version of her, the one who always folded, was gone. Valerie started posting vague quotes online about ungrateful daughters. Tessa deleted her comments whenever anyone asked what happened. The performance crumbled without an audience. Only Marissa checked in with genuine concern. She stopped by one evening with groceries and a soft smile. "I wanted to tell you something," she said as she stacked apples on the counter. "Dad tried something similar with me years back. Said no. I'm glad you didn't let him pull you down with him." It didn't fix the past, but it made Scarlett feel less alone in it. Inside the apartment, the atmosphere softened. Ellie began painting again. Big swirls of color that looked brighter than December itself. Her shoulders loosened, her laughter returned, and one afternoon she shyly asked Scarlett to come to the school's winter art show. Ellie's piece was selected for the front display. She stood beside it, hands clasped, cheeks pink with quiet pride. "She has a gift," her teacher whispered. Scarlett felt something warm rise in her chest. Hope maybe. Or healing. At work things changed too. Raise. New responsibilities. More stability. For the first time in years, home didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like a refuge. Lighter, warmer, free from obligations disguised as love. We weren't missing anything, Scarlett realized one night. We were finally whole. Winter circled back around. One evening, the two of them decorated a small tree in the corner of the living room, its yellow lights glowing soft against the walls. Ellie pulled out a tiny gold unicorn ornament, one she'd saved her allowance to buy. She hung it carefully and stepped back. "Do you like it, Mom?" Scarlett smiled. "I love it." Standing there in the warm light, watching Ellie's joy, she understood. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who shows up, who protects, who loves without conditions. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. They didn't lose anything when they cut ties. They gained peace. They gained freedom. They gained us. If you've ever had to set boundaries with your own family, if you've ever had to choose your peace over their chaos, tell me in the comments. I promise you're not alone. And if this story resonated with you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.